the unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth, is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Reverend Master Mayon, for inviting me to offer some Dharma. Although, as I mentioned to Reverend Master Mayon, there's nothing left to say after we recite the Shishogi, is there? I mean, my understanding is that this was obviously this was done after Dogen's death, and it's a compilation of, hard to find an adjective for it, a compilation of the essence of his works, going through what he had written. I believe the Shobogenzo, there may have been other things. And we have sometimes chanted it, we have sometimes recited it, but I particularly like reciting it because it kind of speaks to me more, and I don't worry about whether I'm off key or not. So I do have a few things to say, even though there's nothing much to say. And I want to talk this morning about the light within all of us. And it's a phrase that I came across actually as a result of our book study group this fall, because we looked at the Sandokai, which is written by Sekito Chisan, if I'm pronouncing that right. And he wrote another poem, and the other poem was called Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage. And there is a book with a commentary on that poem. It's by Ben Connolly, and it's called Living the Classic Poem, Living Inside the Grass Hut. And one of the sentences in the poem is, turn around the light to shine within, then just return. The vast, inconceivable source can't be faced or turned away from. Meet the ancestral teachers, be familiar with their instruction, bind grasses to build a hut, and don't give up. So once you start practicing, you're in for it. Anyway, so that really intrigued me. I'm going to read the whole poem to you shortly. That I thought, well, what is the light that he refers to? And what is this business of returning? Are we returning from something, or we're going to something? And the more I thought about it, and the things that I was reading at the time, the analogy of light is everywhere in our scriptures. I've finally gotten through the Platform Sutra, and it's in there when he talks about the essence of mind. And of course, we have the Buddha's last teaching, make a lamp unto yourself. It was interesting, I'm a great fan of Mary Oliver, the poet, and I opened a book. It's her New and Selected Poems, Volume 1. And I've gotten it out of the library before. And I just opened it without looking for anything. And the line at the top of the page was, make of yourself a light, said the Buddha before he died. And it's her poem that she titled The Buddha's Last Instruction. And I thought, wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for, isn't it? Make of yourself a light. So, what is the light that we talk about? And how do we find it? And what do we do then? It also brought up the question for me, what am I returning to? Which, of course, brought me to the question, What is my purpose in life? And that's the question I think that we all need to look at, regardless of our age or state of health. What is my purpose in life? I must say, as I get older, it comes up more. And also, it comes up more, why didn't I think of this when I was 21? What a difference. What a difference it would have made in my life if I had said to myself, what is the real purpose in my life? Of course, my answer then would have been, well, to be a famous writer, or to be a famous dancer, or to be a famous actress, none of which came about, New York City theatrical notwithstanding. So, what is our purpose in life? What are we here for? And of course, as Buddhists, the simple answer is, well, not so simple, but short answer, to clean up my karma and to help all beings. And for me now, it's to leave this world a slightly better place than when I came into it. Here's what Ben Connolly has to say in the book Inside the Grass Hut that relates to our purpose in life. In his earliest teachings, Buddha points back again and again. He returns to the first teaching he delivered, suffering and the alleviation of suffering through the practice of wisdom, kindness, and meditation. In numerous sutras, he has asked all kinds of questions, some of them very complex, and he answers them all with the same teaching. Each time, he calmly returns and shines a little light on the situation. Each time, he reminds us of his basic message of alleviating suffering through kindness and meditation. These two practices, he continues, kindness and meditation, are intimately related. In one sense, we can understand this line of the poem by saying that to meditate is to shine the light within, and to practice kindness is to return. We retreat through meditation, and we engage through loving kindness. I'm going to take a minute, I think that's all it's going to take, to read you the whole poem. It's not very long. It's called Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage. I've built a grass hut where there's nothing of value. After eating, I relax and enjoy a nap. When it was completed, fresh weeds appeared. Now it's been lived in, covered by weeds. The person in the hut lives here calmly, not stuck to inside, outside, or in between. Places worldly people live, he doesn't live. Realms worldly people love, he doesn't love. I'm going to stop for a minute to say it took me some time, after reading this poem several times, to realize that he was both talking about a grass hut that he'd built to live in, but that we could also look at that grass hut as our own body. So you might want to keep that in mind, because I'm only going to read it once. Though the hut is small, it includes the entire world. In 10 feet square, an old man illumines forms and their nature. A great vehicle bodhisattva trusts without doubt. The middling or lowly can't help wondering, will this hut perish or not? Perishable or not, the original master is present. Not dwelling south or north, east or west, firmly based on steadiness, it can't be supposed. A shining window below the green pines, Jade palaces or vermilion towers can't compare with it. Just sitting with head covered, all things are at rest. Thus, this mountain monk doesn't understand at all. Living here, he no longer works to get free. Who would proudly arrange seats trying to entice guests? Turn around the light to shine within, then just return. The vast, inconceivable source can't be faced or turned away from. Meet the ancestral teachers, be familiar with their instruction. Bind grasses to build a hut, and don't give up. Let go of hundreds of years and relax completely. Open your hands and walk innocent. Thousands of words, myriad interpretations are only to free you from obstructions. If you want to know the undying person in the hut, don't separate from this skin bag here and now. So I'll leave that with you. So in looking at what increases the light that's within it and what feeds it, and I thought first of all of some practical things. When I was growing up, we had a little shore place down by the Chesapeake Bay. We didn't have any electricity, but we had a kerosene lamp. I wasn't allowed to work the kerosene lamp, of course, not so much because I was a young person, but I think because I was a girl. But anyway, later on, when I lived in a trailer before coming to the monastery, I also didn't have any electricity. And I knew how to use a kerosene lantern. And one of the things that I became aware of is you have to be very gentle. There's a little lever that you move, and if you move it too quickly, the wick goes out. And if you move it too slowly, that doesn't work either. So you have to be patient, you have to be gentle, and you have to have an unhurried touch. So I thought those are some good points to look at in our practice of the Dharma. To be gentle, to be patient, and to be unhurried. To recognize that we already have everything we need. And what we need to ask ourselves is, how may I make the best use of this moment and the tools that I have? Another example comes to mind about using the tools that you have is when my grandchildren visited me a summer or two ago. We stayed at the Star Ranch B&B, and they have a wonderful, very huge dining room with these big round tables. They must seat 6 or 8 people. And so we were there for 3 or 4 days, and the children were 12, 10, 6. Oldest one is 16, I think. And of course, they're very active, and they need things to do. So when I had collected up a few little tools, some scissors and some construction paper and some tape and some glue and some paper clips and et cetera, et cetera. And so one morning after breakfast, when we didn't have any place to go, I suggested that we just sit around the table and do something. So I emptied everything out on the table. And it didn't take more than 3 or 4 minutes before every single child was busy doing something. No one asked me for anything else. No one said, oh, don't we have any what's it? They just took what was there, and they made these wonderful constructions. They glued popsicle sticks together, and I can't even remember all the things that they did. And it was a wonderful lesson to me in realizing that we can take the very moment that we're in, and we can say what needs to be done, and we know that we have the tools to do whatever needs to be done. Now, it doesn't mean on a practical basis, and I'm the infirmarian's assistant, that if you're in front of me and you start bleeding, I'm going to say, I don't need a bandage. I'm going to go find a bandage as quickly as I can. But it does mean that from a spiritual standpoint, in looking at what's good to do, we can rely on our meditation. We can rely on the precepts. We can rely on the Four Noble Truths, and we can rely on the Eightfold Path. What we need to do day by day is to find ways to remind ourselves, this is what I'm here for, this is what I have. Another, I'd like to say poet, although he did not consider himself a poet, is Oliver Sacks. The late Oliver Sacks died in 2015, the neurologist, and shortly before he died, he had written some essays. They were published in the New Yorker. One was written not very many months before he died. And they're published in a book called Gratitude. Well, I couldn't resist the title when I came across this in our local library. There was one of his essays in here called My Own Life. And he talks about the fact that he'd been in good health. He was diagnosed with, ocular melanoma 9 years ago, but it had metastasized to his liver, and they thought he only had a few months to live. He says in this essay, "It is up to me now to choose how to live out the months that remain to me. I have to live in the richest, deepest, most productive way I can." That's what he starts out one of the paragraphs. And I thought again how appropriate that is for me now, and how much I wish that I had come across that earlier in my life. I'll read it to you again. "It is up to me now to choose how to live out the months that remain to me. I have to live in the richest, deepest, most productive way I can." And skipping to the end of the essay, "I cannot pretend I am without fear, but my predominant feeling is one of gratitude. I have loved and been loved. I have been given much, and I have given something in return. I have had an intercourse with the world, the special intercourse of writers and readers. Above all, I have been a sentient being, a thinking animal on this beautiful planet, and that in itself has been an enormous privilege and adventure." And I am reminded of the verse in the Shoshogi. What Dogen speaks of is, we have this human body. We can be grateful that we have this opportunity. And this is, as far as we know at the moment, the only opportunity we have. So, when I get a little grumpy and a little crabby, which I wish happened less often, but it happens less often than a number of years ago, I think to myself, what can I be grateful for? What is it that I can say thank you for? How may I practice gratitude and generosity? How may I practice forgiveness? When we talk about light, we know that light shines from a lamp when the covering is removed. And when we turn up the flame. So it's up to us to continually, gently, patiently turn up the flame of our training so that what that light shows is generosity, kindness, and gratitude. So one of the things that we can think about doing is converting greed to gratitude. We all have greed. Wouldn't it be wonderful if it was gratitude instead of greed? But we're the ones that can make that happen. We can convert our hate and our anger, our discontent and our despair to happiness. One of the things that I always take away from any of the Dalai Lama's books that I read is joy and happiness. Joy and happiness. So that's up to us. That's part of the light within. That's part of the flame that we need to turn up, is joy and happiness, not just for ourselves, but for other people. I think the third thing that we need in thinking about the light within and returning is converting delusion to dedication. We need to rededicate ourselves every day to our practice. Whatever aspect of that practice you need to work on, whatever aspect of that practice I need to work on. And some of the ways that have helped me, and I'll offer, we're all different, is the first thing in the morning, I put my hands together before I get out of bed. I put my hands together in Gasho, and I say the 3 homages. And I actually ask Kanzeon, Avalokiteshvara, to help me that day, ... And what follows the ... is whatever I need, that I know I need to work on. And most of that comes from a mistake I made the day before. So I'm never at a loss for something to ask Kanzeon to help me with. And I think if I were, I'd at least say, please help me practice generosity. Please help me practice loving kindness. I'm going to read you a few things that I have found after I get out of bed that help me. You won't have time sometimes for this. I don't have time sometimes for this. But you can keep it in mind. Reading a poem of gratitude. There are innumerable poems out there that allow us to express our gratitude. There was even an article, this was sometime last year in the Christian Science Monitor, and it was titled, So Many Ways to Say Thank You. And it talked about poetry and all the poetry there is that expresses gratitude. And it talked about the last 4 lines from a poem by W.S. Merman. He died not too long ago. It's a poem called Thanks. And the first few lines of it are, we bow over the railings of the river and we say thank you. We come home from the hospital and we say thank you. And he goes on. And his last 4 lines are, we are saying thank you faster and faster. With nobody listening, we are saying thank you. Thank you, we are saying and waving, dark though it is. And I thought, for myself, sometimes when I look at the sorrow of the world and I look at what's happening, it can seem pretty dark. And I have to be the one to remember that saying thank you, expressing my gratitude, is going to relieve that darkness, because that's all I can do. Even if I were out in the world and not a monk, there's not a whole lot I could do to relieve the sorrow of the world. And I'm grateful to be able to remember a sentence that, see if I have it, that Shunryu Suzuki said in a book, To Shine One Corner. And he says, "We say, to shine one corner of the world, that is enough. Not the whole world. Just make it clear where you are." And I came across that years ago, and I've always liked it. The other thing that I've appreciated from Shunryu Suzuki, and this was this his first book? I don't know. It was a long time ago. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind was one of the first books I came across. I still have it. He says, "Everyone has Buddha nature. We each must find some way to realize our true nature. The purpose of practice is to realize the direct experience of Buddha nature, which everyone has. Whatever you do should be the direct experience of Buddha nature." And another quote, which I'll leave you with, and this is from Shen Yang's book entitled There Is No Suffering. It's his commentary on the Heart Sutra. "For Buddhists, life is karma. Receive and respond to the karma of our previous actions, and in so doing, we create new karma. So, the best we can do in this world of karma is to live each moment mindful of the Dharma and the welfare of others, and clear in thought, word, and deed." It seems to me that if we were able to remember some of the sentences from the Shishogi, some of the advice that Dogen gives us, that would help our determination, it would help our dedication to our practice, and it would give us some lovely tips for day-to-day living. Again, when I was thinking about light, and I remembered a sentence that we repeat in one of our closing ceremonies, so I'll repeat it to you as a closing for this talk. "The light of the Buddha is increasing in brilliance, and the wheel of the Dharma is always turning." So I would offer to you, may we let our light shine inward for the benefit of all beings, and we are part of all beings. May we continually return with wisdom and loving kindness for the benefit of all beings. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha.